Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham, Neal McCready here with you today. We're opening up the show with an interview. Good friend of ours, not just a friend of the pod, actually, a legitimate good friend, Hogan Gidley, joining us today. He is the National Press Secretary for the Donald Trump campaign, former Principal Deputy Press Secretary for the White House for President Trump as well. He will join us in just a second on a podcast brought to you every single day by the Oxford Exxon. You know the spiel by now. You download the Speed Pass Plus app. They will take care of you. You pay right there at the app. Get on with your day. They also have the plastic sleeves to make sure you are staying safe as possible there at the pump. And we're coming to you from the Clark Ford studio, Mr. McCready.
We are Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi. 662-257-1900 is the number. You guys know how it works. Call Corey. Tell him what you want. He's going to send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. Guests, including our friend Mr. Gidley, join us on the Rafters Music and Food Hotline. Rafters on the Square is open. Good place to go hang out now that you're allowed to live again. And you also can go to Rafters on the Water. It's open Wednesday through Sunday. Wednesday and Thursday it opens at 3:30. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday it opens at 11. Drink specials, great food as well. It's kind of a laid-back, fun atmosphere, live music, all of that stuff at Rafters on the Water and Rafters on the Square in Oxford.
Hogan, thanks for jumping on today. Last time we talked, it was from the West Wing, from an actual podcast. So you moved on a little bit, but still doing somewhat the same thing, right?
Pretty much out of the frying pan, as they say, into the fire. When the president tells you where he wants you to be and why he wants you to be there, then you kind of go where that takes you. I mean, let's be honest. We all serve at the pleasure of the president, is what we say in the West Wing, and that's true for everyone who works there. When his pleasure says, go to the campaign, fight for me over there, then you go to the campaign. So that's where I am, and we're doing the fight over here.
Your history, though, is in a lot of campaigns. I know it's something you've enjoyed over the time. It's kind of how you spent a lot of your past prior to the time in the White House. How is it different, though? I mean, kind of the upper coming, trying to come through all the caucuses and the primaries and everything versus now. I mean, what's the biggest difference in your day-to-day versus then?
Well, look, in the White House, obviously, it's a different structure. You have to answer for everything. So if someone fires off a rocket at 2 a.m. and you get a call, in the middle of the night, you've got to be up on that for the next day and for the American press corps. Here, it's just focused on one particular thing, and that's reelection, making sure the president gets another 4 years. That's what we're focused on here. And so it allows me to ignore a lot of the other things going on in the world that while I have to know about them and know what they mean for the future of the country and what they mean to a reelection, I don't have to answer for them like I do at the White House. And so that's a big difference. And, of course, all of my campaigns in the past have all been somebody running for office. There have been a few reelects in there. But now you're the National Press Secretary for a presidential campaign for a sitting president. So obviously you've got a lot more assets, a few more toys at your disposal that you didn't have, running small races in small states. So those are kind of the glaring differences, I think. But I'm settling in nicely. I know the president, know him really well, know his family really well. I've worked with a lot of people in this campaign, not just in the White House, but in past political lives too. So, I think it's a pretty seamless transition and one that'll be beneficial to the president, and that's what it's all about.
I'm curious. I know you're too busy to even have given this a whole hell of a lot of thought, but you for 3 years or 3+ years had kind of a front row seat to watching history unfold day after day after day. Have you been able to even put that into context, into when this is over, whenever that is, when you look back and at the experience that it was?
The short answer is no. I've been asked, kind of my favorite memories and what happened in the White House. So much comes at you so fast, it's tough to really kind of get a grasp of it in the moment. I imagine you're an NBA guy. It's like trying to, Michael Jordan having his first championship, being able to try and describe it, in the moment or days after, as opposed to, the documentary The Last Dance, where he's had years to reflect on it, think about mistakes, think about successes. That I think is going to take me a while to kind of wrap my head around it. Just because, when you're there, the grandeur of the building itself, I think, is somewhat you can't overstate it. I mean, you walk by, and I would often literally just stick my hand out and touch a seat or a table or a carpet or the columns on the colonnade, and just think to myself, how many people have walked this walkway, how many people have sat in this very chair, this room, and made decisions that affect the world, not just Americans and their lives, but the whole world. It's overwhelming and very humbling to even think that you had a seat in the same location. And when you see like past books of past presidents and their photo essays, and I look and I say, oh, I've been in there, I've sat right there. That's interesting. We've shared the same seat. That to me is just kind of really special just on its face. But as far as the work I did there and what it means to me and the impact, it's going to take a while. And I've had the question before, and I just don't know how to answer it yet. And hopefully you don't feel like I'm dodging it. I think that's fair. I can't wrap my head around it. And when I thought, I left the White House, I thought I'd be able to start to decompress, but I come right onto the campaign, and now I have to ramp up and get up to speed over here on other issues. And so, no rest for the weary. And then hopefully after this is all said and done, I'll be able to reflect a little bit more.
Your boss tweeted today that he had talked to Kevin Warren at the Big Ten. He said that the ball's on the 1 yard line. I'm curious, is that first and goal at the 1, or are we at the other one with 99 yards to go to get to the end zone?
It's interesting. Just in my mind, as an Ole Miss graduate and Ole Miss fan, I thought it was the latter, that we were on the 1 having to go 99 yards.
Yeah.
But that's just because of my mentality at Ole Miss sometimes. But I think it's a little bit closer than that. I think people are on the 1 yard line. Look, I think the country wants to reopen. I think students want to go back to school. But we want to do it in a safe way. I know people are getting agitated, they're getting angry, and they should. I mean, this country's not built to be shut down the way it has been, and with constantly changing information coming in about coronavirus. We have the best infectious disease experts at the White House who are looking at this and working with it in real time. As you know, it was first they said don't wear masks, and they said do wear masks, because while they are experts, they aren't experts on COVID. This is something that's brand new. I mean, it was unforeseen, it was unprecedented. It came straight from China, and we had to try and wrap our arms around it in real time. And I think we did a really good job of taking some bold, decisive action early on that our opponent, Joe Biden, for example, said he wouldn't have taken. And we now know from Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and Dr. Hahn that, shutting down flights from China and from Europe saved countless lives. And so it has absolutely given us, an interesting summer, to say the least, to try and figure out exactly what's going on in this country with COVID. But as we learn more and more that a vast majority of those affected negatively by this virus are adults and elderly and people with comorbidities, then the case to keep schools closed at every level just seems to diminish more greatly every single day. So hopefully, they do it the right way and they begin to reopen, and we get some football. I think everyone needs a release. I think everyone needs to relax with some sports, but obviously you don't want to do it at the detriment of a person's life. But look, I think the president is a sports fan, but he swore an oath to protect the safety and security of the American people, and so he's going to do that regardless of a football season.
I'm going to get back to Midwestern football, but I do want to get your opinion, and I guess if you know the president's opinion on this, I'd love for you to share it. Who should be the quarterback, Plumlee or Corral?
That's such a great question.
That's why I'm here, making the big bucks here in the Clark Ford studio. I mean,
I understand.
Not everybody can sit in this chair, buddy. Okay. I mean, you walk around the White House and think, Reagan was here, Kennedy was here. I walk around this Clark Ford studio sometimes and think nobody else has been here, just me.
You're like Jeffrey came through once. That's good. It's close. I have no idea. Haven't spoken with him about that. Don't have an opinion one way or the other. I'd have to see practice. You guys have been there. I haven't. But
you've seen as much practice as we have.
Shows. Yeah. I do a lot of radio shows across the country, and I get a lot of sports fans who ask questions about football because they all want it to go back and be played as well. And I get a lot of Big Ten people who say, the Big Ten canceled or the Pac-12 canceled. What do you think about that? They're not going to play football, and I inevitably will step in it and say, well, I don't think they play football anyway. I'm an SEC fan, and it usually goes over like a lead balloon, as you can imagine. But the SEC hosts love it, so we're just ready to get back to some football, I guess.
So let me ask you this, because that's obviously the I mean, we can make jokes about which league is better and all that stuff, but obviously Big Ten football is a big deal. Those are huge stadiums, and they fill them up Saturday after Saturday. And from a campaign standpoint, those are important states for your candidate. President Trump was elected in large part because of his ability to win some of those Midwestern states, the Rust Belt states, 4 years ago, and I'm sure that's part of the game plan this time around as well. How much of a topic, I mean, how much of a campaign topic is not the football itself, but just the idea of getting things back to, quote, normal, end quote, reopening schools like you mentioned and that kind of thing? And then, in your opinion, why is the Big Ten not playing football as of right now?
Well, look, I don't know that anyone cares about my opinion on the matter. I'll just point this out. To try and undersell the importance of sports, I think back to when Bill Clinton lost his reelection bid for governor one year, and there were a lot of different people that made some speculation on why he didn't win. And there were some sports guys at the time in Arkansas who said, part of it that added to the anger and added to the unrest was because the Arkansas Razorbacks weren't doing well that year. They had a really bad year, and they kind of just were, fans were, they're kind of crazy folks every once in a while, and they get bent out of shape about all types of things. And so a lot of people credited Arkansas having a losing season with one of the reasons Bill Clinton lost re-election, and there are a lot of other factors there, but still. When races are decided by razor-thin margins, as we expect this one to be, where you stand on getting life back to normal is very interesting. And just the other day, Biden was asked, what would you do if the health experts said you need to shut it down? He said, shut it down. I'd shut it down all over again. Well, that just destroyed our economy. The science is back and forth on some of the health and recovery of COVID-19, but the science is pretty clear that with more children at home, they're suffering disproportionately to instances of abuse. Their nutrition is now down because a lot of their meals come from schools, they're way behind in education now as well. So a vast majority of kids out there in some of the rural areas don't have the ability to Skype in or use a computer to get educated. So it's caused some serious problems in this country, and we got to figure them out. And sooner or later, I mean, it's obvious a health expert would tell you, how do you deal with an infectious disease that's airborne? Of course they're going to say shut everything down. But you ask an economist the same question, they're going to say leave everything open. It's the job of a president to take the advice of experts in their respective fields and then make the decision that best empowers the American people, best protects the American people, because it's not just lives at stake here, although there are many. It's livelihoods at stake as well. You have to be able to make a living and pay rent and put food on the table and clothes on your kids' backs. And if Joe Biden's solution is just shut it down whenever a health expert tells me to shut it down, I think that's dangerous territory to be in.
Do you anticipate debates? Are the debates going to happen?
I think so, but boy, they are laying the groundwork on the Democrat side for Joe Biden not to have to debate.
In what way? How?
Well, look, the media and the Democrats don't want Donald Trump to speak, and they don't want Joe Biden to speak, but for very different reasons. They know when President Trump gets up to that microphone and he delivers a message directly to the American people without the filter of the mainstream media, that it resonates. It's positive, it's uplifting, it's patriotic, it's humorous, and people like his toughness and his stance on all the issues. When Joe Biden gets up there and it's unscripted and he can't get a piece of paper handed to him from his staff off to the side, he says things like children love to rub his leg hair and black people all think the same way and Arizona's a great city. And so they don't want him up there in that hand-to-hand combat, I don't think. Now, he's a great debater. He's been around for half of a century, for heaven's sakes, and I feel like while Joe Biden's own words have lowered the bar enough for him to debate, there's no question the media, they're complicit and compliant with whatever Joe Biden wants. So they're going to set it up to where either he doesn't have to debate, or if he does, they're going to set the bar so low that if he just gets up there and says, "Hi, my name's Joe," they're going to say, "Wow, that is brilliant. This guy is ready for the world stage." So, I think we want to have debates. We want to have them earlier rather than later. We made some pushes for that because most votes, I think in 2016, 41% of the votes were early, and that was without a pandemic, without shutdowns, without quarantines. We expect the vast majority of the people of this country to have voted before Election Day. In fact, 16 states and 8 million people will be voting before the first debate. And since you haven't had like a regular conventional campaign season where you're out there hand-to-hand combat and you're being pressure tested by real Americans and by members of the media with tough questions, the American people haven't. It's a disservice. They haven't had a chance to see that. So we were pushing to move debates earlier. That's probably not going to happen. But I think we're going to at least debate once. I just can't imagine Joe Biden sticks around for all three. But that's just a guess.
What are your thoughts on the mail-in voting? I've read some stuff today from various media outlets where are some projections that on election night, when the only numbers that are really available to the media are the numbers from Election Day itself, that it is going to appear like Trump is winning in a landslide. Yet when the mail-in voting comes in, that could change in a dramatic way. That we won't know on election night who is the next president.
Yeah.
What just kind of your thoughts on mail-in voting itself, and then what you think election night and the days and weeks following that could look like?
Yeah, it has the potential for some difficulties. There's no question about it. Look, I want to separate a couple things here. The media have done a really bad job explaining what we're against at the Trump campaign, which is universal mail-in voting. When the government just takes over all the voting systems from the federal level, states start sending out ballots the way they do that they've never done before. The Democrats are basically trying to change the way we conduct elections, weeks before an election. And I'll give you an example. Nevada is a great example of this. So they just passed a law where their governor, I'll get a little wonky here for a minute, but they just passed a law where they will allow votes to be counted 3 days after Election Day if they can't tell what the postmark is on the mail-in ballot. So what they are going to do is mail out 2 million ballots to all the residents in Nevada, and the postage is prepaid. So you get an envelope that's got prepaid postage. When you vote and send that in, post offices don't date stamp prepaid postage envelopes. So theoretically, you could wake up on Wednesday morning in Nevada and say, wait a minute, Donald Trump's winning Nevada by 100 votes? Go find me 101. You could find 101 votes, put them in the mail with these prepaid envelopes, and as long as they get there by Friday, which is the new Nevada law, they are counted. Now, you tell me that's not a recipe for disaster after an election with where people are right now and some of the anger that exists in this country. If someone's ahead after Election Day and then all of these swaths of mail-in ballots coming out of nowhere and these states have passed these crazy laws that allow votes to happen after Election Day, I mean, it is extreme. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. If you're doing absentee ballots where you request the ballot and it comes in, that's great. That's a tried and true method. If you're doing early voting, that all works. It's when you're trying to upend the way we conduct elections just weeks before the election that's a problem. Even the states that have it, there are 5 states in the country that have universal mail-in voting in their states. But even the Secretary of State of Washington State said it took 5 or 10 years to get it right. Democrats are trying to do it in 5 or 10 weeks. I just think that's a recipe for disaster. And now, of course, there was a story this morning in Axios about how, as you just said, how Trump would win on Election Day, and then they try to overturn it basically with votes coming in. They're setting up the groundwork for this to be an illegitimate election right off the bat. Democrats have been saying it for a while. You see how Hillary Clinton told Joe Biden, don't you dare concede. It's because of this. They know what's coming, and they're going to try and take the election after Election Day, and that's something we have to make sure we stop.
So it kind of bothers me, not from any partisan standpoint, but just in general, the idea that could happen whether Trump wins the election or whether Biden wins the election. In that scenario, you're going to have virtually half of the people, if not more, that view whoever the winner is or whoever is the president, whether it's Trump or Biden, they will view them as, I don't know if the illegitimate is the right word.
Illegitimate. That's right.
Yeah, regardless of where your politics land and regardless of which of the candidates you are for or however you feel about them, that's not good for the country.
No, it's not. Especially while we're in the position we're in right now with all this violence all across some of our great cities. People are angry, and some people are angry for legitimate reasons. Some people aren't angry for legitimate reasons. But it's rife with fraud, the potential for fraud and abuse, and the media consistently say. I tweeted something about this a couple of weeks ago, but the media consistently say that no, there's no evidence of this, no evidence for this. A great story came out just yesterday where a Democrat operative basically tried to scam the system and did, and showed how he did it. There were a lot of local stories out there, because local news has no agenda, and they tried to pressure test the system, and it failed. Look at states like New Jersey. They had 20% of ballots kicked out in a local election. New York took 6.5 weeks to figure out who the nominee was in a congressional district with 40,000 votes. That's it. When you're talking about 40 million people voting, and they can't get it right on the local level, and the media will often tell me when I'm on air arguing with them that, well, yeah, but there's no evidence of fraud. Well, first of all, that's false, as I just outlined. But second of all, you're telling me we have to have fraud before we set up laws to prevent fraud? That seems kind of stupid. If I'm telling you all the ways in which it could be fraudulent, and you're like, no, we'll just wait until an election comes and goes and all this fraud exists, then we'll work to fix it. That seems very, very stupid.
You mentioned the protests and the demonstrations and the riots and all the things that are going on kind of all over the country. I think the president was going to Kenosha today. Is that right?
He is. He's there. I think he's there now, I think, or for what I'm looking at TV. Yep, he's there right now.
So
I don't know when this is going to air, but he's there right now.
Yeah, the governor of Wisconsin didn't want him to come. What kind of goes into the decision to say, no, I'm the president, I need to go?
Well, look, it's no surprise that the governor doesn't want him there. It's no surprise the mayor said the same thing. They're all Biden people, so there's we're in the political season, and so they're going to try and play politics with this. The fact is, we've seen death, destruction, looting, rioting. We've seen assaults on innocent Americans, just beating them senseless, simply for just trying to protect the businesses they themselves built up, or just walking down the street. I mean, this is a horrific situation, and most of the cities, or all the cities, are Democrat controlled. They have Democrat governors, Democrat mayors, many for decades, some for over a century. And so the president's offered to send in federal assets in many places, has in some of the Pacific Northwest, and we've calmed down and tamped down a lot of the violence up there. I think it's a very good success for the federal government. But, the system is set up where we have to be asked to come in if we're going to put in federal assets, from the Guard. A lot of these states just refuse to do it, and we've been talking about this now for 90 days. And Democrats, when they had their convention, I mean, they had 4 days in the ear of the entire American, people, and didn't even mention it. Democrat-controlled cities, a Democrat convention, and they didn't talk about what's going on. I mean, this is hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars of damage caused out there. Trillions, if you're counting the PPP program, where the federal government had to step in and pay for people's salaries and for businesses to be open. And these governors and these mayors aren't doing a thing. And when the president says he wants to help out, he'll send troops. They say, no, he's a fascist. When he doesn't come in, they said, no, it's his fault. It's absolutely insane. You can't have it both ways. The media here has completely missed the story and missed the ball. And finally, I mean, Joe Biden this weekend said this was still all peaceful protest. When he realized the polls weren't cutting his favor, he decided to come out and say, no, there's violence. And the media said, yes, there's violence, but it's Trump's fault. You watch this video. There's not a single Trump voter out there shouting down Rand Paul when he leaves the White House, or shouting at that elderly couple, or burning these buildings, or setting fire to churches, defacing federal property. They're not carrying Trump flags, folks. I mean, they're clearly Biden supporters, and they've just largely ignored it. And it's really, really, I think, hurt so many of these local communities, and the American people just haven't been safe. And so the president, as I mentioned early on, took an oath for the safety and security of the people of this country, and he's gonna make sure that happens. And he's talked about the Insurrection Act. I don't want to go that far yet because he says he doesn't want to use it yet. He wants the governors to ask him to come in, but he does say that's on the table because as much as the government does overreach, one of the things they're supposed to do at their core is protect those who can't protect themselves. And right now, so many of these Democrat-controlled cities just aren't doing that, and so the president wants to fix it.
So what will your role be as things go forward? Will you be with the president on the campaign trail? Do you coordinate things from back in, I guess, Virginia? How does that work?
I will be on there some. It depends. I mean, obviously we don't travel as much because of COVID and the restrictions and things like that. But I'll be out there some. Obviously my job is to go on television and go on radio and go on podcasts like yours to articulate the president's message and where he wants to take the country, and to defend him and to point out some of the issues and woes on the other side of the aisle. And so that's kind of where I'm going to be for the next little bit. We have two amazing studios here in the building, and we do a lot of live stuff from here, a lot of stuff from Skype. So that's kind of my role. I talk to him still every once in a while, and we go through a few topics, and then we talk about football or other things, and it's always entertaining. So that's kind of my role now, and that's where I'll be for the next couple months anyway.
Well, if you need any help with like setting up on studios and stuff, Chase and I, we do this show called Hand Raise Guys, and man, it's amazing. You can hear the phone calls coming in and everything. It's awesome.
Well, I hope y'all cleaned it up, because the first few ones I listened to, it's pretty gutsy to just go live and say we're gonna just see how this goes, as opposed to making sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. You know what I mean?
The live stream gets a little carried away at times. There's a few times where I'll look up and I've got, hey, deleted message, and I'm like, what's that? You look over at Neal and go, don't worry about it. It's just gone. Don't worry. We're all good. So, it's old hat.
I still like when you can hear the people calling in. You got the Skype ring. I miss hearing that.
It's the most frustrating thing we've got. It's the thing we have to fix, frankly. That's the one thing of all of our setup that drives me insane.
This will shock you.
But y'all do a good job of like incorporating the people in the room. Like, who else is in the room? Let's talk to your girlfriend. Let's talk to your wife. And that's always hilarious to me.
Yeah, well, it's what we do. It's not everybody can pull this off. We're not all Peter Alexander.
True.
I mean, he wishes he could do this.
Northwestern, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Northwestern grad, no good.
All right, my man. Thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
Anytime, guys. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Hogan.
For those out there, we are absolutely, issuing an invitation to the Biden campaign, to their press secretary. In full disclosure, we've never had drinks with Biden's press secretary. He's never been in our homes. And we've never gone to Washington and hung out in his office. So it's going to be a little harder to get that person on, but we're going to try.
The connections are not exactly the same. I did find a couple different names though that we can contact, give it a shot. So we'll see what we can see what we come up with as we move forward. Anyway,
I should have asked him if he thought Kentucky basketball cheats. My guess is that his answer right now would be pretty political.
Well, probably should be. That would be that would be a good answer there.
I don't think they want to lose Kentucky.
Yeah, Hogan's not Bubba either. I know everybody tries to put things on Bubba, but pretty sure Hogan is not Bubba.
Let's set the record straight on this Bubba thing.
Yeah.
You don't know who Bubba is.
I have no idea.
I don't either.
I've never even, I'll be honest, my curiosity has not even gotten me to the point where I've looked it up. Like you would think, hey, I could go in and find out if I really wanted to, and I've never done that. I know his area code, so I know when the number pops up on the screen, but I don't even have the entire number memorized or anything like that. So, yeah.
I get that question from people more than I get any other question. Who's Bubba? And then when you tell them you don't know, they don't believe you.
They think we just are hiding it out. And
people in my own house think that. They're like, they get angry about it. Oh, I know you know. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, is it real? I'm like,
Well, I mean, like from a personal standpoint, I only know a couple of our callers ever. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm glad you call in. I'm glad we've developed a rapport. But as far as actually like knowing anything about your life or your family or anything, I mean, very, very few. Just people that we know elsewhere. So anyway, we'll get some football talk in a minute. But we do, I'll tell you about Community Mortgage, Oxford, Memphis, Soto County, and Chattanooga. Underwriting and processing is in Memphis. They're getting local underwriting and understands your market. A leader in condo financing, the float down option, and more. You can find Jason at 662-234-2704 or JLOWE@communitymtg.com.
The podcast is also brought to you by our friends at Bain, Moss & Bowen, located in historic downtown Corinth. Their firm practices a wider range of law, from DUI defense to car wrecks to representing government entities. Bain, Moss & Bowen, the only firm in Mississippi made up of a sitting state legislator, a former assistant district attorney, and a former circuit judge. Their experience is unmatched, and you can tap into that experience by visiting them at 618 East Waldron Street in Corinth or by calling them at 662-287-1620. We're also brought to you by Oxford University Bank, OUB, locally owned and operated right here in Oxford. When you deposit money at OUB, that money and the vast majority of the bank's profits go right back into the Oxford community. OUB is home to a commercial checking account, now paying 1% interest as long as you keep $10,000 in the account. Comes with fully interactive online banking. They can set up any local business to deposit checks from their office and not have to worry with coming to the bank daily to deposit those checks. It's to learn more about OUB, go to liveoxford.bankoxford.com or call 662-234-6668. OUB is FDIC insured. And we're brought to you by Grenada Nissan. If you're in the market for a Nissan vehicle, Grenada Nissan's the place to go. They've got a complete selection of new and previously owned Nissan vehicles, great lease deals as well at GrenadaNissanUSA.com.
So, as I said, we'll send some more invitations. Appreciate Hogan jumping on and giving us time there. He's been quite busy for the last few years. He will get done with this job at some point in the next, I guess, 4 years. Who knows what he's doing and when? But I have to sleep a little bit probably. I mean, I know his hours per day, and they're pretty crazy. So.
Yeah, we're friends with Hogan. We've been friends for a long time before he was with the White House, and I always feel bad now because he'll call sometimes, and I think he's probably calling to talk about something other than what he talks about 23 hours a day.
Typically, it's like sports. It's like, I mean, it's almost that thing where, he'll call us and go, hey, what about this and this? And I'm like, well, I do have 3 or 4 questions.
Yeah.
Hold on. Like,
I'll start grilling him on, hey, what's going on? And then I feel bad after I get off the phone. I'm like, that I did exactly to him what I don't like people doing to me.
So we talked to Lane Kiffin today, had a Zoom call around noon. As we've mentioned, they did not practice Friday because of the march. They moved that Friday practice Saturday, moved Saturday practice to Sunday. Sunday practice was a scrimmage. And I'll be honest, he got a few football questions, a lot of COVID stuff, a lot of health stuff today. Frustrated would be how I'd characterize Lane Kiffin today. He cannot seem to get his roster straight because of quarantine, because of positive cases. He doesn't really know what he's working with, and he mentioned that it goes a little deeper than just, hey, we need to see these guys on the field. He said, we don't have relationships with them. I don't know what all they can do. I'm still trying to learn about them in general versus the programs that are a little more established. It's one more positive for them going into the season versus in Arkansas, Missouri, and Ole Miss and Mississippi State with a first-year coaching staff. And I sense that he's not getting done what he would hope to get done. And I thought that usually he's very, very level, not really giving you up or down and just kind of answering your questions. I sense more dissatisfaction and frustration today as he was talking.
Yeah, like I don't think he thinks they are where they should typically be at this point. With still 3.5, 4 weeks to go before the season begins. But yeah, this COVID thing is disruptive. We were talking about this on Greatest Pod in the South yesterday, which I still need to link and send out and tweet out and stuff. But we were talking about our individual kids. Jay's got a daughter at South Alabama. I've got a daughter at Arkansas. And everybody's dealing with the ridiculousness of COVID. And if you don't like that statement, I don't know what to tell you. It's crazy. And he's dealing with it every morning. He, being Lane Kiffin, gets a text that says, here's who's not available today because of COVID or close contact with COVID. He was talking about his offensive line, Chase, and he said they've got 3 linemen out. couldn't remember if it was one because one had it and two had been in close contact or vice versa. And he's like, I don't know. I can't keep up anymore.
Secondary room just decimated.
Yeah.
It appears.
So they don't really know what they're working with. And he's like, you're going to get all those guys back in time for the Florida game, but the guys who test positive now in the next couple of weeks, and it's not really the positive test. I think what's frustrating people is not the obvious with, hey, a guy tested positive, he's got to come out. I get that. What they don't understand, what's bothering them and driving them crazy is you're having to sit guys for 2 weeks who are asymptomatic because they had a close and negative because they had a close contact with someone who was positive.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to sit them out for 2 weeks, and then when you bring them back, they've got to go through some testing, and you have to bring them in slowly. He said, that's a 21-day deal, basically. It's a 3-week deal.
It's what we mentioned with Auburn yesterday. What was it? It was like 10 days and then acclimation, so it ended up being 17 days or whatever it was before they actually got back.
So, and at Auburn, it's a new offense that they're running, but let's keep it real. This is Malzahn's offense. It's the same defense. Their kids have been in that program for a while, so it's easier to adjust. They know the kids. They can communicate. It's a little better. These guys are still in the get-to-know-you phase. What are you wildly typing over there?
Notes to get back to from our thing. I had your story pulled up.
Gotcha.
I guess the point of it, as we're talking, is there's still time. But he mentioned you're 3.5 weeks away at this point. September 1st, first game September 26th, so just under 4 weeks away. And there's going to be guys that get sick between now and then that are in trouble of not playing.
Or they don't get sick.
Yeah.
Or they're just in contact with somebody.
Right. It's the contact where, I know, and I don't remember the player's name. I put some stuff on the board this morning, football-related names are going through my head a little bit too fast right now. But he's not had a positive case. However, he's been close contact quarantined 2 or 3 times at this point. So he's missed.
I'm dealing with this with my kid.
So he's missed, 15, 20 days of practice, whatever it is. But doesn't have – but, again, if you're fine, haven't gotten the positive to then not be tested for 90 days or whatever the rule is as they move forward. Because I heard that yesterday once we were talking. If you get the positive test, I think you're good for 90 days is what I heard.
Oh, so that's why – a lot of these kids are like they wish now they could have just gotten it in June, July, be done. But you get a close contact and you've never tested positive and now you're out 2 weeks. They are having a call tomorrow about the rapid test.
He said that today.
Yeah, and I've gathered from kind of talking to people around the league a little bit that coaches are starting to ask for some clarity here. I asked earlier in the week, today's Tuesday, I asked yesterday some of the questions I have, and I asked Kiffin this today, and he said, I don't know, really. If you test positive on Sunday, is there a path to getting clear on Saturday? And the question is about asymptomatic guys. Obviously, if someone's testing positive and they have symptoms, they can't play.
Of course, yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about guys who don't have any symptoms at all, are perfectly healthy, but they're testing positive, and there's beginning to be this conversation about as the virus wears off, and it is wearing off, as the cases go down, and I don't understand the science behind this. I've read Dr. Cunningham's answer on this, and I'm not smart enough to get it. False positives go up. Supposedly, if the virus were completely gone and you did 100,000 tests, you'd get around 4% false positive. I don't understand that. I don't know why. I don't know how. How are they going to treat asymptomatic players who are healthy, testing positive, and you can't trace them to a contact with someone? How does all that testing work? This is where I sense there's some frustration growing from coaches right now, which is, okay, I get it that we have to be careful, but is it possible that we're overreacting here?
Well, and even to the point of you ask him, and he answered in one scenario, but didn't have an answer for the other part of the scenario, which is they're testing 3 days a week. If you're tested on Sunday, do you at least get the opportunity to see if it was a false in a direction and then move from there, especially if you're asymptomatic and you haven't experienced anything? And he said, well, if you have symptoms, here's the rule, but nobody seems to have a really good answer on, well, can you test negative on Wednesday? Can you test negative on Friday with the rapid and then move from there and be okay to play? There's a lot of just kind of unknown there. There doesn't appear to be a protocol to this point. So that's what we don't know.
I mean, in Major League Baseball, they've sat guys because they thought it was possible that they had COVID. Wait, what? Are we going to do that? Now, I will say this. If you look at the Big 12 regulations that came down, which I suspect will apply to the ACC and the SEC and the other leagues, I think it's 53 players eligible from a COVID standpoint, and you play. Now, I don't know whether that's 53 scholarship players or whether that includes invited walk-ons. And it does apply to position groups. Like if an entire position group was wiped out, that game would not play.
Well, Lane said today when I asked, he said he thought he mentioned something about 53 scholarships.
Yeah.
Something in there. And then he said you got to have like 6 offensive linemen,
a quarterback,
1 or 2 quarterbacks or something.
3 receivers or something. Yeah.
3 defensive linemen. I know he said that, which, I mean, pretty small threshold there, but nonetheless, that was.
Which is the whole, hey, we got to play these games. TV. CBS is signing up now. CBS is making their schedule. If you wanted to sign about whether we're on pace to play or not today from CBS, the answer was yes. CBS is making a schedule. ESPN is making a schedule. Ole Miss opens against Florida at 11 a.m. Central Time.
On ESPN.
On ESPN.
Yeah, I had those up. That's actually what I was looking for was the game times.
Okay.
I'll find them in a minute. But
Ole Miss, I can tell you this. Ole Miss and Florida is 11. Ole Miss at Kentucky is 4 Eastern, 3 Central. Ole Miss against Arkansas will either be an 11 a.m. game or a 3 p.m. game. And there was one other one that I thought they had announced, but I can't remember it off the top of my head now. It might just be those 3. So 3 day games in the first 4. There's a rumor out there that Ole Miss, Alabama could be a 2:30 game on CBS, but CBS has not committed to that game. CBS committed to several games today and left a couple of dates open.
Yeah, right now, the opening weekend, September 26th, Florida at Ole Miss, 11 a.m. Central Time on ESPN. Kentucky at Auburn. That's going to also be at 11 a.m. on SEC Network. So Lane Kiffin's first game. Florida's a good team, obviously, getting the nod there from an ESPN standpoint. Frankly, everybody always got mad about the 11 o'clock game, but even in the past when we had fans in full stadiums, that was a really attractive time slot for TV because they said, hey, it's coming right out of game day. We're trying to keep you immediately with that first slot, and it gets in there where you're not competing against the CBS 2:30 game of the week or any other stuff going on, obviously, at night. That 11 a.m. game was actually a higher slot than a lot of people necessarily gave it credit for being. Georgia at Arkansas, 3 o'clock SEC Network, as that will be a bloodbath. Alabama at Missouri, 6 p.m. on ESPN. In the closest game from a line standpoint of Week 1, Tennessee at South Carolina. That is 6:30 on SEC Network. And then the biggest line of the week, Vanderbilt at Texas A&M, is also a 6:30 start on opening
Mississippi
weekend.
State LSU is a 2:30 game, right?
That's a CBS game.
Gotcha.
The opening weekend. Yeah.
Gotcha.
The way SECSports.com did it, they put all the ESPN games on a story, and they've got the CBS games on a different on a different story. You mentioned Ole Miss, Kentucky, 3 o'clock SEC Network. South Carolina, Florida got the ESPN game in that one. And then you got a pretty good game that night, Auburn at Georgia in Week 2.
Yeah.
At 6:30 on ESPN for that one.
Georgia Rebel corrects me in the chat. He's right. He or she, I assume it's a he, but I could be wrong. He could be part of our 12%.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt is 3 o'clock game.
Yeah, Vanderbilt is 3 o'clock. I do have that here. Let's see. They don't have it. Okay, I was trying to see who was competing against that. I'm not sure. Kentucky at Missouri, SEC Network that weekend. State Alabama got an ESPN 6 o'clock on that night.
Yeah.
And then Arkansas at A&M on SEC Network that night as well.
So, Arkansas A&M's a night game.
Yes, 6:30 in College Station. In College Station, right? Because they're not doing the Dallas thing.
Not Dallas this
that's
year.
What I thought. Yeah. Okay, so got a few. We're slowly getting there. We're getting TV stations now. We had times. I mean, it's just.
Lets us make some plans. We needed to know some things.
That's true. I mean, I guess timing not mattering as much,
right.
But I mean, morning game. That's a win on that day.
Yeah.
I mean, think about our schedule. That's a win.
Yeah.
more later, not right now. Let's see. Yes, let's see. CBS games, they have given opening weekend state at LSU, as you mentioned.
Let me correct myself. Will Burns corrects me nicely, but I need to correct myself. It is possible that someone is binary. So I will leave that alone. I will no longer can assume someone's gender. That is politically incorrect, and I apologize.
Let's see. State and LSU opening weekend. That's in Baton Rouge on CBS. A&M Alabama is a CBS game the next week.
They didn't declare one for the third week, which is
correct.
the week that Ole Miss and Alabama could play. But
they're waiting a minute.
They would have just had Alabama the week before
and have them the week after.
Yes, it's
it's a night game the week after. It's where they have the doubleheader thing, I guess. Georgia at Alabama is the night game at 7:00.
Okay.
On CBS that weekend. LSU at Auburn is the Halloween CBS 2:30 game.
Yeah.
Florida at Georgia gets its annual spot on CBS at 2:30, and then Alabama LSU. The 5:00 start for that one, by the way. 5. That's interesting. I don't recall. When's the last CBS 5:00 game? What's caused that?
It's Masters.
Oh, that's right. That's what caused it.
It's 6
CBS is going to be rolling that day.
Yeah.
They get Saturday Masters coverage all day, and literally as soon as it goes off, you go into Alabama at LSU.
Yeah.
Just counting money.
So today was a good day. If you've been worried about whether they're going to play or not, today was a day that pointed in the direction of they think they're going to play. CBS would not go this far down the rabbit hole if they didn't feel good about it.
I keep forgetting Masters is November, right? Alabama LSU weekend.
Yeah.
Just completely.
Jim Nance. And now with the sun setting.
Yeah.
We go up the road a little bit to Athens. It's where they go to Tuscaloosa, don't they?
Yeah. I think
we go to Tuscaloosa. It's LSU and Alabama next
on CBS.
On CBS.
Yeah.
Go from the Azaleas.
More unfair criticism, Jim Nance or Joe Buck?
Nance. Nance is really good.
Okay. You're going to go with Nance, the whatever.
Nance is really good.
Cardinal coming out in you a little there? Or just
maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
Buck can get a little obnoxious. Nance is really good.
Nance giving the tie drops him so many points in my book to where I have a hard time.
But the actual broadcast itself, he's really good. He's probably gotten to the point where he's so good and he's become almost as big as the game to some people, which probably has inflated his ego to a place that it did not need to be.
Joe Buck has been more pleasant on podcasts that I've listened to over the years.
Yeah.
He's actually pretty straightforward, whatever. Nance goes so deep on trying to placate and talk about how good everybody works with and how this is why we do. Like, it just there's a little saccharine there. It's kind of the announcer version of me not really liking Field of Dreams and stuff, where I know I'm in the minority, but there's something about it that just kind of turns me off, and I go, I don't know, I can't quite get there. I've been more on Joe Buck for whatever reason. I got several texts about it this morning because everybody knows my affinity for it. You know, Bill Simmons does the Rewatchables podcast where they do old movies. Cocktail today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Cocktail today. I haven't listened yet. I'm saving it for a long run or something, but they jumped into my favorite popcorn flick of the 80s, the Tom Cruise in his canon there, Cocktail. So, yeah.
Questions asked in the thread, how's Kevin Warren still employed? Because he's doing the dirty work of the 11
they're
presidents.
actually happy with him. They have no problems.
Yeah, the 11 presidents that wanted football canceled, he did their dirty work. He took the heat. He's the one that got on the call with the president today. The presidents and chancellors didn't. He did it. Became a political football. And the Big Ten beginning to sweat a little bit.
What do you think they do?
I don't know. I mean, what should they do?
Well, I know what they should do, but what
are
they
going to play? They should set a schedule, starts October the 3rd or 5th or whatever that is, and go play. What do I think they do? I don't think they play. I think they try to force feed some schedule through in the spring, and it's a total disaster, and heads roll is my guess. My guess is that the autopsy that's performed on the Big Ten will result in a lot of casualties.
Yeah.
Isn't that yours?
Yeah.
Especially if the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 get to the finish line?
If they pull it off in any way.
And right now, around the league, everybody's doing this right. And if you don't believe it, listen to Gus Malzahn and Lane Kiffin, where Gus Malzahn said, hey, you know what? We don't need to do this week. Hey, he's a coach, man. They're all coaches. We can talk about how they're whatever. They're all coaches, and they're wired to compete at a high level. And for them to say, hey, look, this is different. Let's take a week off. Let's chill. Let's see what we can figure out, tells you that they're taking it very seriously, that they know that the worst case is 2 weeks into the season, they have to pull the plug on it and become the laughingstock of the national media. And I can tell you there are people in Birmingham that desperately look forward to the day that no matter who it's crowned as the champion on December the 19th, I guess, desperately look forward to the day that Greg Sankey hands a championship trophy to somebody, anybody. And you might not believe me, but I'm telling you, I'm sourced on this.
Anybody.
Any one of 14 teams from Arkansas to Alabama and all parts in between, so that they can then get on the Twitter machine and start sending some jabs.
And they won't be subtle.
They will not be subtle.
Yeah.
They might even be specific. Probably won't be, but it won't be hard.
Like, I remember a few years ago when the SEC got all obnoxious and they kept sending out, like, when they had the 7 in a row or whatever, and they just constantly beat that over. Kind of like that, except this. Yeah, kind of like that. So.
There will be some subtweeting that goes on that will be some inside football in this case, where I think those of us who have followed the storyline will get a pretty good kick out of it.
Yeah. Let's see. Come back a little more football. First, I'll tell you about Tyson Drugs and G&M Pharmacy. You know about the immune support med packs. Pharmacists develop combinations of vitamins and supplements designed to boost your immune system and lung health. 30-day supply of vitamin C, zinc, NAC, probiotic, and vitamin D3, which work together to boost your immune system, GI regulation, and more. Pharmacists believe it's the best combination of over-the-counter supplements to prepare your body for dangerous viruses. You can stop by Tyson Drugs in Holly Springs or G&M Pharmacy on South Lamar in Oxford. That's 662-236-2222.
We're also brought to you by John Edwards, Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. If you're thinking about having some sort of a trip this fall, got some time on your hands, there's a lot of deals out there. If you're ready to travel, you can take advantage of those deals just by getting in touch with John Edwards. What you do is just give him some parameters, give him a budget, let him give you ideas that you're not going to find on your own. He knows where all the deals are right now. 901-494-3387 or jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients save $50 off their first book trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. We taped a Mind on My Money podcast this morning. It's brought to you by Pinnacle Trust. Pinnacle Trust, also home to the Pinnacle Trust 401k advisory services team. Get in touch with them, and they'll conduct a complimentary no-obligation benchmarking and analysis of your current 401k plan. Mention that you heard about Pinnacle Trust on the Oxford Exxon Podcast. You'll get 10% off your first year's fees. And we're brought to you by our friends at Dead Soxy. Check out the new line of Dead Soxy no-shows with 9 new styles to choose from. You can find the style that best fits your occasion. Use the promo code Rebel Grove at checkout. Get 30% off the best dress socks you've ever put on. Also, check out several bundle packs currently on sale. You can use your promo code in addition to these already deeply discounted prices at deadsoxy.com. That's DEADSOXY.com. Make your day a Soxy one.
So, the thing we've been talking about all weekend, message board pretty inundated with topics. Ole Miss linebacker Momo Sanogo talked today. Neal has in his notebook some different quotes from him, but essentially, I'll read a little bit of it here. Said, what happened to lead to Friday's march on the Oxford Square? Quote, Coach could feel like the guys had a lot on their minds and were feeling some type of way. He asked us, the leadership canceled the night before. What do you guys want to do? Do you want to play or practice? I support you 100%. We feel like we needed to play. We got up here Friday morning and some guys were really affected. We called a team meeting. The coaches were behind us. Decided as a team we wanted to march to downtown Oxford. We kind of used it, not like there was a point to it, but that the point was that we were going to unify as a team, coaching staff and all the faculty towards making a change, trying to make a change. That's not going to be the last thing we do. Maybe the next thing won't be as drastic. Maybe I'll be going and spending time with the Boys and Girls Club in North Mississippi or pitching in money to feed some family that needs help or whatever it is. But we're going to do something that we can do to make a difference in our community and make a difference, period. Got to ask about this couple different places. I think Neal and I talked about it too. I don't know all the members. I know the Leadership Council. I know that's Jacquez Jones, John Rice Plumley, I mean, Mac Brown as well. I think Eli Johnson was on it, so I don't know what they've done to replace his position. But some of the guys that are on that group that kind of lead the way on this kind of stuff from a football team standpoint. Sonogo also said that they would reach out to Florida and potentially try to coordinate something with them for opening weekend.
Going to be really interesting to see how that shakes out. That's the other thing that I'm sure the SEC office, the ACC office, the Big 12 office, trying to figure out how do you best reconcile, for lack of a better word, the player's desire to make a statement with the, hey, it's important for us to have TV ratings. That establishes our market value in selling the product on television. I don't know the answer to that. I'm glad that I don't have to make that call.
It's an impossible call.
NBA ratings are down 23%.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, and the basketball's really good.
And that's not because it looks weird on TV.
No, because the basketball itself, the actual basketball product, might be a better viewing product.
The way the cameras and stuff are.
Yeah, we're up close, man. You hear stuff. It's really good. And last night, I didn't watch either game. Heat Bucks was a good game. Thunder Rockets was a good game. Not everybody's interested in, and this isn't a judgment on the validity of some of the players' stances. We've talked about this. I'm not actually one of these people. I'm fine with it. The whole kneeling thing, you and I've talked about this for 4 years. When Kaepernick knelt 4 years ago, I was like, oh, whatever. Okay. So that doesn't bother me. But some people go to sports as an escape, an outlet.
In college sports, even more than pro.
Even more. And so
because there is an emotional component. There's the pageantry and all the stuff, if you will.
So I've heard people say, and I don't know whether this is fair or not, but I've heard people say if I wanted to hear 2 hours of politics, I'd watch Tucker Carlson, or I'd watch what's her name on MSNBC?
Rachel
Maddow. If I wanted politics, I'd listen to Chris Cuomo. If I turn on TNT or ESPN to watch a basketball game, I don't want to hear politics. I just want them to play basketball. Now, is that realistic? Are you asking the players to just shut up and dribble? I don't know. It's not for me to decide. That's for other people to decide. But when the ratings are down 23%, if you're a sports organization, you're a fool not to pay attention to that. And I'll be curious to see how that is handled at the college level, because people do not turn on college football games on Saturday for politics.
One last little thing on Kiffin today I thought was interesting was, Auburn took a lot of time off, and Kiffin made the mention that you only have so many practices, that there's no guarantee of what's coming up. No matter how many he has out there, he would still conduct practices with whomever is healthy and available to him. That he did not foresee a scenario where he would stop practicing at this point. He's trying to get reps in.
He very clearly feels that every practice right now is precious.
Yeah. He's trying to get as many reps as possible in whatever way he can.
Look, you and I talked about this. There's a thing out there in fandom, and I get it. I do this as a Cubs fan. Every time the Cubs play the Pirates, I'm going, W. That's a win. Well, Pirates have good players. Here's my point on this. Ole Miss opens with Florida, Kentucky, and Alabama. 3 of the most established programs in the league right now. I didn't say best. I said established. This is what, year 3 for Mullen?
Mm-hmm.
He's got his systems in now. He's got a lot of his players in now. This is year, 7 or 8 probably for Stoops at Kentucky. It's his program. His stamp's on it. This is year 13 or so for Nick Saban at Alabama. His stamp is literally branded into that
it's
program.
Engraved all the way in.
So it's not until week 4 when Ole Miss goes to Fayetteville that they face a program that has been through as much chaos as they've been through. This is a tough slog. I hear Ole Miss people all the time that go, hey, we could get that Kentucky game. And I'm not sitting here saying you can't. But anybody who looks at that game and goes, that would be – if you told me today Ole Miss won at Kentucky, I'd say, wow, it's a pretty big upset. From a point spread standpoint, I think the line at Kentucky will be higher than the line when Florida comes here.
Florida's 9.
I think the Kentucky line will be a double-digit line. I mean, Kentucky goes to Auburn in week 1, and they've got a shot.
I'm really interested in that game.
So, I think the point is that this thing is – and I've already had people say, you're making excuses for these guys. No, I don't know these guys. Why would I make excuses for any of them? I don't know them at all. This is going to be a hard slog. And you throw in all of the COVID stuff and the fact that everything is so discombobulated from a getting ready for the season standpoint, winning games early in the season is going to be a real challenge.
You and I were on the phone today. 3-7 is not a bad season.
No.
It's fine.
Here's why. You talked about this, and you're exactly right. In a regular season, it wouldn't be 3-7. It would be more like 2-6 or 3-5, and you'd win 3 or 4 of your non-league games, and you'd be
maybe bowling. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you might be going to the Birmingham Bowl with everybody going, man, I tell you what, well, that's reminds me of Hugh Freeze in 2012.
Let us get the system in place, and here we go. Yeah.
So, the people that and I saw it written today. It's because of recruiting, this is not a throwaway season. Okay. I'm not saying it's a throwaway season. I'm saying wins and losses don't matter. What matters from a recruiting standpoint is showing kids, listen, they're having conversations with these kids. And they're going to tell, if they're smart, what's the key thing in sales? Under-promise and over-deliver. Hey, listen, I don't know how good we're going to be. It's going to be a challenge. We're playing Florida, and they've been there for a while. They've got good players, and we're going to have our hands full, but watch what we try to do in our passing game. Mm-hmm. Watch what we try to do with our defense. Watch how we attack and blah, blah. I'm going to throw a number out that doesn't exist so that no one – see number 107? If you were out there, that's your position, and we'd be so much better. That's what they're going to try to communicate from a recruiting standpoint.
Speaking of one thing, again, go read it. It's on the board. There's some notes and stuff from practice. Still hearing Matt Corral's name a ton as it comes to the Ole Miss quarterback job. I expect him to get more first-team reps as they move forward, and we'll see. It's kind of where it is right now. So I have no idea what that necessarily means for Plumlee. They obviously want him on the field in some way. It's going to have some packages. What that looks like, no idea. So, don't know.
Hypothetically,
sure,
if John Rice Plumlee were not playing quarterback,
okay,
wouldn't he have an easier path to getting on the field quickly on defense? Georgia recruited him as a defensive player. He was recruited as a
defensive back. Yeah. And Ole Miss is incredibly thin there right now.
Yeah, Ole Miss is loaded at running back. He would have a hard time breaking the rotation as a running back.
Yeah.
You've got Ely. You've got Connor. You've got the 2 freshmen, one of whom appears to be very, very good, and the other one is good in Bullock. So you've got 4 running backs who are better than him as a running back.
Sure.
And then people keep talking about him in the slot or as a receiver. The only problem I have with that is not whether he could handle that or not. It's wide receiver is a technical position. Kind of like corner is a very technical position. You can put an athlete at safety, simplify it, put in a package for them, and let their athleticism carry them out there. I don't know what wide receiver with releases and routes and understanding some things. I don't know that.
Ole Miss is pretty good out there. You're having to beat out guys that are SEC caliber wide receivers.
Yeah, and have been training in SEC systems for a while.
Yeah,
with releases and hand placements and some of that stuff that you have to teach at corner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, there's a better chance of him impacting immediately as a safety than there is him impacting as a wide receiver right away. I just don't. I don't think that's the automatic move that a lot of people out there make.
No, I don't either. I think you're exactly right about that. There's no doubt. So anyway, there's stuff there. Speaking of, Yeah, name that we don't talk about much, but I've heard a ton of good about Dennis Jackson to this point. I guess sophomore wide receiver now, assuming he played more than 4 games last year. So just again, couple nuggets or whatever we're calling it.
Like I'm responding to this right now. Someone says be a wide receiver like a slot guy like Edelman, but Julian Edelman's played that position his entire life. That's what he's done. I think we're falling into the trap when we do that of, another smallish, really fast white guy, Wes Welker. But Wes Welker played wide receiver his entire career. Wide receivers, if you watch them at practice, they do a lot of drills with hands, with releases, with getting your hand placement in a place, just like corners do of getting your hand in a place to change leverage and stuff. I'm not saying Plumlee couldn't learn that. I just don't think it would be instantaneous.
Defensive back would be really interesting.
There you let him. John Rice has a football IQ. Being a quarterback would give him a little bit of a free safety is kind of like a quarterback of a defense. You read things, you anticipate things. He can really run. He's very athletic. I think it would. I'm just guessing here. I'm spitballing. I just think he would have a better chance of impacting immediately on that side than he could at wide receiver.
Predicting that over there?
No, I'm just kind of talking through it. Where if he's not going to play quarterback, and you determine that you need him on the field, given where your biggest need is right now, which is in the secondary. I mean, the biggest need is at defensive line, but I don't like John Rice Plumlee's chances to help you there. So your next biggest need is at defensive backfield.
Yeah.
Well, he's not going to go move and play corner because that's too technical to learn right away. But he could play in open space at safety, and I think he would impact faster than he could at wide receiver. I mean, if you told me that John Rice Plumlee became a running back, I'd be, okay, well, I mean, he's a physical kid, he's athletic, but they don't need a running back. They're loaded at running back. They're
trying to find Snoop Conner carries right now.
Yeah, they're trying to figure that out.
I think Parrish has passed him.
They're trying to figure out Kentrell Bullock's role.
Yeah.
I mean, he's another guy that you might want to look at safety at this point.
They moved Mark Britt over there.
And how thin are they? Ole Miss is really thin at safety. How thin are they? They moved Mark Britt. They brought him in one day for meetings, showed him a little bit, and the next day he's running with the ones. Now, he's done really well, and he's a really good athlete, but it's pretty rare that you move somebody positions and you go, hey, and by the way, you're starting.
Yeah. Had some random baseball stats on the podcast that popped up while we were on Twitter. Saw one a second ago. Max Fried with the Braves. He started 8 games this season. The Braves have won all 8, and he's not allowed a home run in any of them. He's the first lefty to allow 0 homers through 8 starts, with his team winning all 8 games since, gotta guess?
First lefty?
Yeah, first lefty to allow 0 home runs through 8 starts.
Okay.
With his team winning all 8 games.
Okay. Since, oh, wow. Steve Carlton?
Better go farther back than that.
Really? Okay. Ron Guidry?
Keep going.
Sandy Koufax?
Keep going.
Babe Ruth?
That is correct. Since Babe Ruth in 1917.
Wow.
It's been 103 years since dude's doing what Max Fried's doing right now.
Could make a Joe Biden joke on the 100 years thing, but I didn't.
Full circle there as we get ready to close. Let's do this. You've watched a little baseball. One more.
Yeah.
Then
I've watched a good bit of baseball.
MLB leaders in WAR so far this season.
Okay.
What do you got? I got the top 6. How many of them can you guess? I would have no chance. Seriously, I would have no shot.
Top 6 in WAR. Can you tell me a team?
I would get 3 of them correctly. I can. I feel
Tell
like
me a
that.
division. Tell me a division on a player.
All right, let's start with the NL West.
Okay.
And we can stay there for a minute, honestly.
I'm going to guess there's a couple of Padres in here because they have had a big year. Fernando Tatis Jr.?
He is number 1.
Okay.
He is at 2.6.
I'm going to guess based on what you said that Manny Machado is not on that list. He's had a hell of a year.
He is not.
No Mookie Betts?
He is on that list.
Okay.
He is second or third on that list. We still can hang out there though if you like.
In the National League West.
We can.
Okay. Is Nolan Arenado on that list?
Nope.
Okay. Probably another Dodger. They've had such a big season. No Dodger?
Mm-mm.
No? I don't know. I don't know.
All right. So in that
division, who's on the list?
In that division, we have Mike Yastrzemski with the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah, he's been terrific.
He is on there, and we also have Trevor Story on there.
Okay.
He is on that list as well. We have a AL West player, and we have an NL East player to close out the list.
AL West and NL East.
That is correct.
The AL West player is not Mike Trout.
That is correct.
Because Mike Trout has a lower WAR right now than a couple of Cubs. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Jason Hayward and Ian Happ
Really?
both have a higher WAR today than Mike Trout.
Okay. Yeah, I got an AL West and an NL East to close out the.
I'm going to guess
list.
the AL West player plays in Oakland.
He does not.
He does not.
Nope.
Then I have no freaking idea.
The AL West player is Anthony Rendon
I would not
of
have
the
guessed
LA
that.
Angels. And then number 5 out of the NL East, Trey Turner, is on the list.
Yeah.
So
they've
Tatis,
had a
Betts,
terrible year.
Yastrzemski, Rendon, Turner, Story is your top 6 WAR for the year.
They've had a horrible year.
Yeah.
You mentioned Max Fried. He actually, as good as he's been, by giving up a couple of runs last night, he dropped to number 2 in the National League in ERA.
I follow them just enough, even though I'm nowhere near a fan. I have not gotten back into it. I haven't watched a full game all season. I was really kind of intrigued to see if they could grab Clevenger there just to kind of see it. But since that didn't happen, I went back down and I went, all right, never mind. I'm still – because I don't think they – frankly, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think they have the ability to grab the really, really big name arm. I think they'll end up with just some dudes and – you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't think they're the landing spot for one of the big-time guys to replace Soraka and then make the run.
Well, I was reading about the Cubs, obviously, and just money was an issue. You know, it wasn't necessarily the player price. It was money's an issue. And right now, even though these teams think that they'll open next season with fans in the stands, they don't know it. And if you don't know it, you don't really know what it looks like. What's your bottom line look like? Can you put fans in the stands in spring? Can you put fans in the stands in April when you open the season? That inability to answer that question emphatically is affecting people's, reach.
Mm-hmm. So.
By the way, shout out to Campbell McCready. Glad you're watching.
Oh.
Miss you. Hope you're doing well. Hope to see you soon.
Reminder one more time. Again, if you're in here, I assume you're already doing it. But if you listen to the podcast version of this, please subscribe to our YouTube page. We'd really, really appreciate it. You're just hitting subscribe. You can hit the bell. You get notifications. Completely free. Take you 1.5 seconds. So we appreciate that. We'll have one more afternoon show for you tomorrow on Wednesday afternoon. We'll be back with you on Thursday night. I think we've got more guests lined up, working on a couple of just final details, but I think you'll enjoy some of that as well. So,
and yes, we are extending an invitation to the Biden campaign. So for those of you that think that we're not really being serious, we are.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely try to do that. So we appreciate everybody hanging out. Appreciate Hogan's time today as well. And we'll talk to you very soon.